You're listening to the Sasha Davis Podcast, a show about overcoming fear and manifesting your dream life. Each week, we'll dive deep into real stories and tangible advice about spirituality, law of attraction, mindset, and money so that you can be your happiest, healthiest, and most abundant self. You ready? Here we go. Welcome back to the podcast, boys and girls. Today I have Amanda Walker with me. I'm really excited about this conversation. I think we met virtually, of course. We were just talking about how whenever I get to Arizona, shouldn't say if, when I come to Arizona, I'm going to meet you in person. That's going to add to my list of people that I need to see in real life. But we met virtually like 2 or 3 years ago, I think, through a mutual friend, had a conversation, and I've just been kind of following you ever since. So I am super stoked about this conversation to hear, about your journey and the Feel Amazing Naked brand that you've created and all of the amazing things that you're up to today. So Amanda, if you could introduce yourself for our listeners, that'd be awesome.
Awesome. Well, first off, thank you for having me. I too am excited to just talk privately and hopefully soon enough, like take you on a tour of Sedona or something magical like that.
Oh, I would love that.
So I am a life and business coach, and part of the work I do, or my purpose, I believe, is to help women build a life that feels amazing. And part of that, for my entrepreneur types, is a business that feels amazing and aligned and authentic. And for ladies that I work more specifically around life coaching, it's kind of building their life from the inside out, which includes how, we fuel our body in the mind and how, like, what actual fuel we put inside our bodies. And so today it's kind of grown into a really awesome kind of boutique coaching practice that I'm so grateful to lead.
I love that. And I actually have a few of like my followers or people who I have, had conversations with, and they have just raved about your business program. So
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. So how did you take me back to like the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 years? Like where were you like 10 years ago, and how did you become this brand, this person, this human that you are today?
Well, 10 years ago, I was a high school teacher
Holy smokes.
dissecting cats with juniors and seniors, and starting, to build a family. I have an 11 and 9-year-old now. And my husband is also a police officer. So both very like social servants, I guess you would say. And I remember very clearly at that phase of our life, as we started having children, just kind of having these conversations with each other, like, we are meant for more. Like, we are intelligent, like, passionate people, and we were really stuck in the confines of what we thought life should look like. Go to school, get married, or meet someone, go to college, get married, work for, in the corporate space. And so I would say back then there was a strong calling for me of like, life can be different. I just didn't know what it looked like. So fast forward, after having 2 babies and being stuck in a body that I despised and was having a lot of shame around. I just kind of really lost, I had multiple miscarriages and a lot of just complications, and that created a lot of shame around my body, from my perspective, not working like it was supposed to. So I found myself, very much in a body I never thought I would be, and kind of went on my own weight loss and health journey. And I thought, if I just lose the weight, I'm going to be so much happier in life. And then I got to that, 6-pack ab space, and was at the most probably insecure and unhappy with my life that had ever been. And that truly was a catalyst for me to do my own personal development work around confidence, around letting go of the constraints that we put on ourselves, reconnecting to what the hell I wanted in my life while being a mom. And so that's really how the Feel Amazing Naked brand was born. Is Feel Amazing Naked to me means like unapologetically being vulnerable and authentic with what you want in your life. And it's not necessarily weight loss that breeds confidence. And I want women to understand that confidence and authenticity you crave can be at any journey. You can want to feel better in your body, of course, and that's part of the work I do. But the brand is really ambiguous for a purpose, because I want women to understand that building a life that feels amazing to them is partly letting go of what they think it should look like and figuring out what it is that they want.
Yeah. When you say naked, like, and maybe this is just me, or maybe this is other listeners, but when I first heard your brand, because I don't really associate you as just being in the physical component of like what overall wellness, so when you say like feel amazing naked, to me that means like stripping down all of the labels that maybe we put on ourselves and just feeling good as you, as yourself, as a whole, as a human, versus just like feeling good physically naked. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that's spot on. And the fact that you said that warms my heart, because that is exactly what I hope is felt out there too, right? And I often say, like, we, through my method, right, which I call the naked method, we strip down everything that was to build it back up in the way that we feel that it should be, right? And part of that is stripping down limiting beliefs, stripping down kind of what society and culture have installed in us when it comes to what life should be, what food should be, like kind of all the BS narratives that exist. And when we like dissect all of that, we're like, oh my gosh, I never knew that this life could look and feel entirely different when it's my own.
Isn't that wild? Like how you grow up and you think like these things are so normal, and then all of a sudden it's like, wham, it hits you and you can't unknow all of the new things. And you're like, how is this okay?
Yeah, I totally
It's
remember at one time, like early on in my own like personal development, my first mentor, I remember going up to her and saying, I was actually like in a place of grief, because I was like, I felt as though I was looking through life with a new lens and I wanted everybody to have it. And I was
Yep.
grieving because I was like, how do I want everybody to feel this. And she so sweetly said, well, Amanda, not everybody is meant to. And you're
Yep.
here because you have now, like, you can create a ripple effect for those ladies that need to come to you so that they can like look at life through that new lens too. So I think that's for both of us, right? Is now we get to offer that out to the world.
Isn't that the coolest feeling? But I want to go back just a few, because you had said, after I had kids and things like that, you experienced some shame around your body and whatnot. And I, while I don't have the same story as you, I too, kind of carried some of that like lack of confidence, a little bit of shame, or like, what the hell am I doing with life? And I'm just curious, did you always experience that? Because when I was younger, I almost had like a chip on my shoulder, and I had like an external kind of confidence, but not like that internal confidence. And then once I went through that like transition period of like, who am I? What am I doing? What does motherhood mean? Do I love my body? Things like that, going through that personal development journey, then it was like I created that internal confidence, which then kind of radiated externally. Does that?
Totally. I call it false confidence. I think when I
Okay.
was young, I had false confidence. And I think that confidence actually came, was dependent on what I thought confidence was created. And that was from my
Mm-hmm.
body. Like I remember
Yep.
being younger and wearing more like fitted clothes and
Yep.
like seeking that attention from my physical self. And I think that's the like that's the limiting belief out for so many women that still hold, a lot of women I work with still believe that the physical, like if I just lose the weight, I'll be more confident. And the reality is you're not. You get there and you're
Exactly.
like, oh crap, I crossed this finish line and I'm still lacking confidence. And that's because my definition of confidence specifically is following through on the things you tell yourself you're going to do. And if you think of this in any context, like if I tell myself I'm going to wake up at 5 for a morning routine and I do it, I'm like, oh yeah, I feel confident because I followed through on me. And the reason so many women aren't confident is because they don't follow through on themselves. And then they go into this cycle of self-sabotage and self like negative inner critic, right? Which leads them down to making choices in less alignment with how they want to feel. And then here we are as adults. And like you said, we realize that confidence is born inside and radiates externally. And that's, I think, the big shift that postpartum and like you said, after having kids, it was like, oh, but this is what it actually feels like.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think is like well, I guess not what do you think, but what do you see in the people that you work with, or even in yourself, as the number one reason that they're lacking confidence? Is it just like self-doubt? Is it lack of like habit structure? Like what is the thing that you see the most?
I'd like to say it's just one thing, and it's really not. I mean, every woman is uniquely different.
Yeah, there's really no one size fits all, is
Yeah,
there?
not at all. But if I were able to break it up a little bit, I do think it's the part of the root is that it's just about creating space for ourselves. So much of the time is we see what we want and we have these visions in our mind of what we want, and then we're not creating space for it. And so there's a lack of congruency in our life of like what we want and the follow through on what we want. And I think once we help women create space for that, then there's a sense of momentum that's like, oh, I can do this. I've got this, right? And that bleeds into all other areas of life. And then I do think there is this root cause of just the inner dialogue and limiting beliefs that we hold about ourselves and about our lives based on, well, let's just be real, like social media and all these things that everybody else is doing, and falling into that comparison piece. And so when we kind of push that to the side and get more clear on what it is that we actually want, there's a sense of increased cadence that comes along with that too.
I love that you brought that up, like the social media piece, because I feel like, and maybe this is just me projecting what I feel, but it's almost like social media has become no longer social. You know, it's like this comparisonitis game. And it's like, how good can I make my life look, you know, versus people actually doing the work and just saying like, hey, this is what works for me. And I know that's one of the biggest things that women come to me for is I feel like I should be farther along, or I feel like I should have it all together, or I feel like I should be at X, Y, and Z, or make this much money. And it's all because they're looking at what other people are doing, you know. And it's like, have you ever heard of the mirror theory, where if like you take all the mirrors out of your house, it actually makes you feel more confident because you're not judging yourself all day?
Yeah,
It's kind of
sure.
like the same thing with social media. I feel like we just judge ourselves all day based on other people's quote unquote success.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's for sure a problem or a root for so many women. And I think it's your thoughts about social media, what you show up to use it for. And I think you're the same as I see some of your stuff out too, is I try to be real candid about my life and not just paint the rainbows that are out there. And I think there is a perception too, especially as coaches, right? When our clients come to us, it presupposes that we too also have our stuff figured out. And I'll be the first to say, like, I'm doing this work because I need it. And I think that's true of every coach out there. And every entrepreneur out there is, we're doing the work we are because at some point in our life, and still continue to possibly, we need it, right? As Brene Brown says, we write what we need. And I like to tell my clients, like, me serving them is healing for me because they're my mirror and they're gifted to me for a reason, because I went through what they did at some point or continue to. And I most definitely don't have my shit figured out all the time. And that's what makes it, you know, I think empathy and passion are the number 1 and 2, possibly, you know, 3, where, you know, there might be something else that falls in the top 3, but of what makes great coaches.
Integrity, I think, is another one.
Yeah, integrity. I would put that right up there. Is I can serve my clients at a higher level because I get them, right? I've been in the trenches with them, and you have too, I believe. And so I can say I've been there, right? I always use this example of, you know, first I was 70 pounds overweight. Like, I know what it feels like to not feel good in that body and to want to desire something different and not be sure. And by no means is my work weight loss focused specifically at all, but I do have an empathy for somebody. I have a level of empathy, unlike maybe somebody else that's been like, you know, never had that journey, right? Or when it comes to building a business, I've stood at the beginning of like, who's going to listen? I'm an imposter. Like, what are they going to think? Right. And I've overcome that at some level, so I can offer empathy. And I think that's a really, really important part of transformation work with clients.
I 1,000% agree with you. And this is something that I always, you know, share with, you know, my followers, you know, if they hire me as their coach, or if they work with me as their coach, or another person, I'm like, make sure that it's somebody that you align with, that has kind of been there, done that. And that's where, you know, the education and the experience both come into play, I think. But, and I wonder if, you said something about like losing your 70 pounds and how your stuff isn't weight loss focused, but I wonder if you start to work on all of the pieces, do people tend to naturally kind of fit into the quote unquote weight they feel they should be?
Yeah.
Is
I mean,
that a
part of
real
the,
question?
yeah, I get what you're saying. I would say weight loss is typically a byproduct. When we
Okay,
start to
that's
let
yes.
go of like the incongruency in our behaviors and beliefs, which is something I teach all the time, is so much of our life we've been taught to go do the thing to have a result, right? You
Hmm.
want that A, like you want to do good in school, go do the thing and get the A. However, the problem is that underneath it is a belief system that either believes it's possible or it's not. And so this is why so many women self-sabotage is they go take the action, but underneath it, they don't believe they're worthy of the outcome, or they don't believe they deserve it, or whatever the case is. And so they
Right.
have the result for a short time and then they find themselves back at square one. And so I share this because part of changing, right, is your belief system. And when you begin to believe you are worthy of the success that you desire, then the body's like playing like, oh, cool. Yeah, no worries. I got you. Like we can lose the weight now. You actually believe it's possible for you. Or yeah, we can make six figures now because you actually believe in yourself. And so, and also we focus on like letting go of the scale being a driver at all. Like none of that matters. It's like, how do you want to feel in your life and in your body? And when you put food in your body, my saying is become an athlete of your life, right? Is like when you
Ooh, I
become
love
an
that.
athlete for performing in life and you change your mindset about the purpose of food, like your body just follows along.
I love that you're talking about belief systems because this is like my jam, because I find that everything in life, everything that we've manifested, everything that we do, everything that we see, it all comes down to a belief system, and that core of what we truly believe is possible. And this is why and not to get off topic, but I don't know if you believe in like affirmations or things like that people say, oh, if you just tell yourself I believe in myself every day, it will happen. And I'm like, yeah, but if you don't believe that, sometimes you actually push yourself farther away. Yes, you may be able to push through with that action for a while, but at some point that self-sabotage will set in and it will trigger you back to square one, and it just validating that belief system that you currently hold instead of reprogramming that belief system.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, it's like it's all root cause work.
Mm-hmm. I love this. So how do you if you're, I mean, I don't want you to like give away all your secrets, but how do you help reprogram, or what were some of the biggest limiting beliefs and how did you reprogram your beliefs and how did you kind of work through that?
Yeah, I think, well, I just want to say, I think that like reprogramming limiting beliefs, and I actually use the word limiting decisions now after having like stepped into the like hypnosis and QTT
Mm-hmm.
time technique work. So I think that because I do look back and I understand now that limiting beliefs are a choice, right? And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we're consciously aware of them, and sometimes we're unconsciously aware of them because they've been passed down to us. Like, for
Yes.
instance, a big belief that I've worked through and continuing to work through is that to have what I want, I have to work hard,
Yes.
right? Or that like to have results and success, like it's hard along the way and it takes a crap ton of effort. And there's parts of that are true and parts of that that are not true. So I think those are definitely limiting beliefs that I've shifted as well. I also see, food is complicated. um,
Mm.
that's often a belief that many women have. Or another belief is I'm not worthy of like all the success, like I can't have everything I want. And so I think the keys for that are first becoming consciously aware that there's even a belief there, and that is super important, is just self-awareness that there is something that you want to shift. And I mean, journaling is a way to become aware. I mean, I teach journaling, I use journaling in my own life consistently. And now, I mean, I'm just such a fan and work with my clients often using QTT, which is just kind of a form of visualization and trance work that helps you understand and orient how you've interpreted time in your life and your future vision of what you want, and be able to kind of dig up the root of when that belief started and recreate a belief that you want to replace. And that has been so transformative for me personally.
So QTT, this is completely new to me. I've done hypnosis, I've done like past life regressions, we've done like I've done a lot of things like that, but this QTT is completely new. I've never even heard of it. So do you like when you do these visualizations, do you like do like a meditation to guide them back to a certain place to kind of see what comes up, or what does that look like?
Yeah, you got it. It's essentially the unconscious mind stores and categorizes time, right? And
Yeah.
it represses, like, if there's things that are unresolved, it represses it. And so the technique helps you to kind of trust your intuition and your unconscious mind to bring up the first time that this like limiting decision was made in your life. And so then you're able to take the learnings from it, and then you're able to kind of install the new belief system. And then from there, I assign tasking to go out and solidify that new decision. And it's different than any form of therapy, hypnosis, or anything that I've experienced, because it's just
Mm-hmm.
very rapid and can be very, very, really, it brings in all the senses, and clients have amazing results from it. And I love how it feels in my own life, because the unconscious
Yeah.
mind is just so awesome at delivering exactly what you need.
I didn't know that there was like, so I've always called it like an age regression. Like we're going back to the first time you've experienced this. Where do you experience it in your body? And I kind of do it with the energy healing aspect, right? Because emotions can be stored in our energy bodies, which can then manifest in like physical symptoms, whether it's weight loss or thyroid condition. I'm not a doctor, but I'm just saying, like, a lot of times, it'll manifest in a physical form: stress, anxiety, depression, or a pain or an ache or something. And if you think about it, and you take these clients or these students through some type of age regression back to when they first experienced, and what that pain or what that symptom is telling them, and what story is associated with it, and how to work on letting it go and rewriting that story. I don't know if it's similar to that, but I love this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds similar in a way, and I think that you can call it many things. I think this technique is slightly different, but I think it presupposes the same idea that trapped emotions create
Mm-hmm.
dis-ease in the body, right? And that
Yes.
dis-ease can show up in many ways, whether it is weight gain, whether it is stress, anxiety. I mean, there's many, many things. But the whole point is to go back to the root and allow that to surface and work through it. But I think the important part here is consciously knowing what you want instead of that belief, so that you can
Mm-hmm.
go out and do the work to solidify it.
I love that. So do you find that people I know you said that they love it and they have amazing results, but like what are some of the shifts that you see, or one of the big shifts that happens when they go through that?
I'll give a couple of examples of just some recent sessions I've done, intensives I've done with the clients. We did some work around limiting decisions of like, my voice doesn't matter. That
Mm.
was the limiting decision, which took us back to a memory of when she like fell off the hood of her parents' car and the hood ornament sliced her neck. And like, that is what got delivered in the, got brought up as far as that experience, right? It was interesting to see that was the direct, obviously the throat where voice comes from, and to see that was like the unresolved piece. And so this came up in her life as far as setting boundaries with colleagues or speaking up at meetings. She's a professor at a medical school, so it was constantly like, she knew what she wanted to share, but she was too afraid to share it in meetings, because she had this belief that my voice doesn't matter. And so we tapped into that, and now she's like sending emails with power, having conversations with power, speaking up inside of development meetings. And so this is just one example of what is possible, of the mind. And I also want to say that I was a skeptic of this work,
Yeah, I
right?
was gonna say, this sounds like energy healing, and like I was
Yeah.
so like, this is so not a real thing, but it is. I love these stories.
Yeah. And so when I started being called into NLP work and hypnotherapy, I was like, why am I being pulled here? And I think
Mm-hmm.
there was curiosity, but also hesitance of like, I was hesitant to, because I needed to like experience it for myself. And so
Yeah.
part of our prep work, we have to do a ton of like, prereq hours of training. And then we go in and we worked on ourselves for like a week straight, as practitioners. And I just had so many transformative experiences of my own that I was like, okay, so there's something here. So I know sometimes for people that haven't done this work, the unconscious mind is kind of like, well, this is new and different. And when we decide to just open up our minds to the possibilities, there's so much cool stuff that can come out of it.
I think this is incredible that you're talking about this, because I feel like I have a very similar experience with like Reiki and energy healing and things like that. And like they talk about the energy body systems and, chakra systems. And I too had experienced like lack of sharing your truth, basically, like stepping into that power and expressing yourself and saying what you mean, meaning what you say. And I did all the things that, you were supposed to quote unquote do. But until I went and had like a healing session, I guess, if you will, which I thought was total, like, this is bogus. This is not going to work. There was just a lot of skeptic beliefs around this is too woo-woo for me. But then after that, it was like it opened a whole new door, and it was, you just can't unsee any of that stuff anymore. And this is just, for me, it was validating alternative healing modalities outside of typical Western medicine, if you will, which just, it opens a whole new door of like, healing is possible, personal development, the things that I want are possible. And, going back to these root cause of even like your belief systems, like it's beyond just that physical thing that you can see, hold, and touch. It's the stuff on the inside too.
Totally. Another one that I think will speak to you too recently that I worked through with a client was a belief: if I take a break, it'll all fall apart. So she's an entrepreneur, and she's still kind of exiting the corporate world, building her business. And so we worked through, that belief with her, and to see what's happened. Now she has like weekly massage appointments or, whatever, different modalities. Sometimes she does, different things each week to take for self-care, but she wasn't taking any self-care, right? Because she was so afraid, if I take 2 hours away, like I'm going to miss something. She's going on for the first time a week vacation. In fact, this week, while we're recording, she's gone for a week, and she shut her business down, and is stepping away from it for a week to totally recharge. Weight loss, yes, that's kind of something that's happening now too, but like just managing her stress, everything. And she's like, Amanda, seriously, I can't even believe all this stuff is shifting for me.
Those are the best compliments, I swear, when people are like, I didn't know if this was possible, and I cannot believe that this shift is happening. And I too carried that belief of, if I don't, the kind of like what you were saying, the one that you're working through is, if I don't work hard, or mine is like, if I don't work hard, I won't be successful. Or if I take time off, everything will fall apart. And so that if I take time and everything will fall apart was something that I held very strongly a couple of years ago. But now, I'm traveling all over, and things are more successful than I could have ever imagined. But I still am holding that belief of, I have to work hard. And I think it comes from even like previous generations. Like if you think to like our parents or our grandparents, like they really had to work hard, like physical labor for the things that they have. And I think, I don't know if you believe in epigenetics or things like that, but I believe that even emotions and belief systems can be passed through to generations. And so sometimes we hold those core beliefs based on how we were raised, and not necessarily what we've experienced. And so that's kind of what I'm working through too, in both my personal life and professional life, is like, you don't have to balls to the wall 24/7 to make things happen.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that goes back to limiting decisions. Is when I do QTT, well, one of the things I ask was, this decision made before, during, or after birth, which is kind of like when somebody first asked me that, I was like, what are you talking about? And I will tell you, I've had like a in the womb QTT experience for myself. And I got out of it, and I was like, I had to call my husband, because I was like, he's going to think I'm like so crazy. And that particular experience was a super healing, experience for my mom and I. That's what came out of that. But part of it is, we don't realize that, unconsciously, our parents model for us those belief systems, even if they don't articulate it with words, right? And they probably got it from their parents, and so on and so forth, right?
Yep.
And all those are beautiful if you want those decisions and they serve you. And if they don't, you get to shift them. And that's a really cool part, is some people might love that limiting belief that it may not feel like a limiting belief that I have to work hard for what I want. It might serve them. You don't have to make the decision to shift it. However, if it's not, then you have all the power to create whatever it is that you want in life.
I love this. And yeah, that's exactly it. Like I always say to people, like, and this is where going back to almost like that comparison mode where you feel like you have to hold a certain belief system because somebody else has that belief system, and you just hang on to what works for you. And I always say, take what works for you, toss what doesn't. But it's going back to that trusting yourself, that intuition, that guide, that confidence, that internal feeling of alignment. Right. And so how do you decipher what is a belief that they want to carry versus a belief that they don't want to carry? Is it just how they're feeling? Do you like walk them through? What I've done is kind of like assign emotions or feeling words to what the belief is to, identify whether this is something that's serving them or not. But how do you help kind of walk people through that?
A lot of it can be two ways. If I'm just doing an intensive around this work and it's not more of I haven't had a lot of front end time with a client to see what comes up. I just watch their language, because before doing QTT, we do some other work around emotions and teach them how to orient their own and get like adjusted to their own timeline and how their conscious their unconscious mind orients time. So part of it's the languaging, like they will say things in there that obviously I've been trained to listen for that cues up the fact that there is a limiting belief there. And then I will ask, hey, this kept coming up. How do you feel about this? How does this show up in your life? Do you want that? Do you want to shift it? And then, for clients that are more of a longer term coaching, they will come out throughout our sessions together and they will start to be redundant, or I will start to see them say things like, oh my gosh, there's never enough time. Like, oh, is that true? There's never enough time. Is that a belief that you don't have enough time? Is that, so I think that it's just as a coach being conscious of their languaging and, being self-aware of how, like that it is a belief that they carry. And then like, does it serve you? Do you want to shift that? I mean, part of this is buy-in, because if there's secondary gain on the other end and they think there's something to be gained from holding on to that belief, then it won't release. So it's also being mindful of that in the discussion piece too.
I was just going to say that I think that it's really great, because that's something that I do too, that I find is a little bit different style of coaching, is asking them, are you ready to release this? Are you ready to let go of this? Is this something that is no longer serving you, that you actually want to work on? Because if you don't really have the I don't know if the word is permission or the desire to actually release that limiting belief, you can do all the work in the world and it's still going to be there.
Yeah, which I see happens because consciously they want to, but unconsciously it feels like it's still keeping them safe. So they have to be at a place where they're ready to let go of that.
Yeah. And that can be the hard work that just transitioning from the I'm not ready to the I'm ready. I mean, there's a lot of inner stuff that comes up for that. But I think when the discomfort or the pain becomes great enough, then the change will come. And some people just, they want to hold on to that. And I find that it can be a sense of control too. Like, this is the pain that I know, this is what's familiar, I can control this. And it kind of gives like a false confidence in that sense too.
Yeah, for sure. I totally 100% agree.
I love this. So and I know you talked about a little bit about, a girl or a gal working on her business. And I know I don't know if I want to say shifted into the life and business stuff, but I'm very curious on the business stuff, just because I've heard people rave about it and how that feeling of alignment and the limiting beliefs and the feeling amazing, how does that work with the business piece? How did you shift into that?
Yeah. Well, two things. I always say that, building a business, becoming an entrepreneur was the greatest journey of personal development I never knew I needed.
Oh, yes.
Because, it literally highlights all of your insecurities and self-work. And so I think that if you're an entrepreneur and you're not working on yourself, then I think that it's limiting, it's capping you at your potential, because there's so much more to do than just strategy out there to step into, all the possibilities that exist. So that's one, is like, that was already kind of like my aha, this is what's missing, like the personal development piece in business building for some people. And then second is as my business grew, ladies were starting to come to me and say like, I've been watching you. I see that you started this thing from ground up and it's blooming, and I want to get support doing the same thing. And so that was kind of an aha moment. And I started doing that and I was like, this is so fun. Like it's very much lit me up because I was weaving in the mindset and, personal growth piece into the strategy part. And so now specifically I work with coaches and online service-based practitioners to build coaching practices that feel very congruent and amazing to them. And part of that is, letting go of belief systems that are holding you up, and also seeing that you can create a business that is your way. Yes, there's so many people out there that can influence like strategy, but none of them are right if they're not right for you. And so a lot of what I'm constantly asking is like, how does that feel for you? How does that feel for you? Because not a lot of people ask us in our life, how does that actually feel when you go out and do that thing? Does that feel good to you? Like, does posting that many times a week feel good to you? Or are you doing it because you should? Are you creating this offer because you should? Or is it because it feels good to you? So I think it's a nice sweet blend of all those things.
My mind is blown right now. Like, I feel like you and I are so similar in so many areas and totally different, maybe not totally different, but different techniques, but like similar outlooks on life. Cause I say the same thing. There's no one size fits all. And when I've had business clients come to me, they're like, tell me how to be successful in, 6 easy steps. I'm like, go somewhere else, because it's not what works for this person may not work for the next person. And you have to do something that feels good to you, because that's where that inspired action comes from. Right. And you don't want it to be forced, because otherwise you're just validating those limiting beliefs of life has to be hard, business has to be hard, I have to do it this way or I'm not going to be successful. And that's so not true. It's learning how to trust yourself and going with what works for you and the life and business that you want to be building. And I think this is incredible. Yeah.
Very perfect then that we're joined. And I think that it's just that we're both, I think, trying to convey the message that the unconscious mind loves steps. Steps are easy. Yes. And also it breeds dichotomous thinking. And I think for both of us, our mission is to help women kind of live in the gray area, because that's sustainable, and to break that thinking, the limiting belief as a whole society that there is a right way. I mean, I think that there is a right way is, the root for problem for so many people.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that there's a lot of people preaching that this has to be the way, or this has to be the way. And it's the same thing with like diet culture too, right? There's a million different ways to do things. There's a million different, meal plans and diets, or ways to build your business, or even personal development, and even coming down to that, affirmations work for some people, visualization work for some people, journaling works for some people. And it's really harnessing, trying it all, but then maybe harnessing the things that feel the best for you, and not having to do all the things all the time. Cause then that just, I feel like you can even burn out on personal development or professional development too.
Well, for sure. I think the feeling part though, as you said that, what came up for me is a lot of women are just so stuck in the rat race, or in the, wake up, you rinse, and like, it's just this like monotony of life. Like for me in the beginning, out even figuring out that they have a feeling and they get a voice and they have a say, because maybe they've been, raising children for 15 years or even 2 years, who knows? And they've lost all sense of like what is right for them. So I do believe that like that's step one, is like, you actually do have a feeling and a voice for yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because when I talk to people and I ask them without doing any, just to kind of gauge where they're at, be like, how do you feel? How do you want to feel? What are and I ask a series of questions. And one of the biggest things that comes up is, I don't know. I don't know the last time somebody's ever even asked me what I want or what that feels like. And so then you have to work through the steps of, okay, what do I want? And you do know what you want. It's just, you've shut it off for so long that you have to relearn how to tap back into that.
Yeah, totally agree.
This is so cool. So what's coming up next for you then? Like, how do you kind of walk me through like how you work with women and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, lots of things coming up in the fall. We will be kicking off our September launch of our program. We've actually been doing this amazing overhaul of the FAN program, the Feel Amazing Naked program. And so we'll be opening up doors again in the fall, and we'll be doing a challenge in September, depending on when your listeners are hearing this. If they're listening to the replay, you can visit Feel Amazing Naked /all-in. We'll be doing an all-in challenge in the fall in late September, just to help women see why they struggle to go all in on the results that they want. And our business accelerator that helps coaches and online service providers will open again in the fall as well. But currently, where you can really start to kind of make some shifts is around like how you feel your body. And I see that this is such a place where women struggle because they're balancing all the hats. They say, I have no time. They have that belief. And so we created just a digital meal planning tool because it's one of the pain points that we see women constantly tell us. So you can go to feelamazingnaked.com /meal planner, all one word, meal planner. And this is like a whole system to just make food totally uncomplicated and to help you fuel your body. Because it's my belief, when you fuel your body, you feel amazing. You start to show up differently in your life. You start to have more energy, get more productive, have more confidence, and you create a ripple effect. And so this is just kind of a system. The planner is all digital. It's like a step-by-step tutorial, a teaching, 40 bonus recipes, because my goal is to help women just put this overwhelming piece that is definitely a constraint towards our life on autopilot.
This is really cool. I wish I would have had this years ago. Maybe I'll even check it out too. And kind of my my simple way of thinking around food. And I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but dead versus alive. And it all goes back to like, how do you want to feel? And you can say like processed food versus, quote unquote, real food, whatever. But I just like ask myself, like, is this food, is it dead? Is it processed, or is it alive? And how will it make me feel? And if you can assign like adjectives or words to the actual thing that's in front of you, because whatever I think you even said this, like food is fuel and you want to like feel energized and all of these things. And so would you look at that food and say, would this leave me feeling energized? Or how would you describe this meal?
Yeah, 100%. And to go even more scientific, only because that's my background, is
no, I hope you do.
100% of the women I work with aren't taking in sufficient protein. And that's one thing that we lose is muscle as we age. And it's a critical component of making sure that we of having that throughout the day. So we're full, we're satiated, we're happy, our hormones are balanced. So when you grab this meal planner, it actually has a drop down menu. It literally makes it a no brainer. Like, so are you getting protein? Here's a drop down list of all possibilities of protein, whether you're plant-based, not plant-based. We want you to have appropriate amount of carb, fat, and protein so that you are energized. And then when you self-select and build out your plan A, we just like take away that Pinterest confusion. I'm not anti-Pinterest. I utilize Pinterest for my business, but it's not necessary to have that paralysis of like, what the hell am I going to cook? But when you drop down and you build out your weekly menu, it auto populates it into a grocery shopping list. So it's truly helping you cultivate a system that's easy.
Even a grocery shopping list. That is one of the biggest things that I hear people struggle with, is they don't know how to shop in a grocery store. Like, what do I get? How do I pick foods? How do I know what's going to work for me this week?
Yeah. And so this is why we built this. After all this time, it was kind of funny. I was like, I really wanted to build a digital product side of my business. And I wasn't really sure what, and it doesn't matter. This is a struggle that so many ladies, I mean, you can't deny being involved with food during the week. I just teach how to lace food into and weave food into how you prepare and plan for your week so that there's no confusion or thinking. Like, I want to show up and know like how I'm going to fuel my body all week long and take it away from deciding at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday what that's going to look like. Everything comes before the week begins so that I am thinking with clarity and purpose around how I'm going to fuel myself.
Yeah, it's like the failing to plan is planning to fail. And if you're setting yourself up for failure, really, if you're waiting until the last minute. And I know I'm guilty of this. I think I have really stepped up my meal planning game in the last few years, but before I was very much that person that, get home at 5 o'clock after, or 6, 7 o'clock after a 12-hour day at the corporate office. And it's like, what do we want to do for dinner? Oh, let's order a pizza. Oh, let's order this. And then that doesn't feel good. That leaves you feeling, crappy, or it wasn't in your budget. And next thing you know, like everything's out of alignment in your life. And it all is just revolving around lack of decision planning on how to fuel yourself.
Yeah. And I teach this kind of energetic vibration around food too, is when we feel exhausted, lethargic, powerless, angry, we eat foods to match our vibration too, right? And vice versa. When we eat the foods, it brings us into that low state. When we make decisions and we fuel our body with, micronutrient dense foods, high protein foods, we feel empowered, we feel confident, right? So there's very much a consistency, or I'm missing the word I want. There's a crossover between those two things. And it's really important that we make that connection.
I think that it's great that you touched base on like the frequency, the vibration of food, because this can also help you, like raise like your energetic vibration and, up the emotional guidance scale. This can help you like feel more in alignment. It can help you manifest more. And it all starts with like properly fueling and hydrating your body too. And I find that there's a lot of women who are underhydrated. They drink half as much as what they're supposed to. And that can also lead to like fatigue and just, lack of decision making or lack of energy, just lots of things. And if you're fueling yourself, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, you can get so much farther in life.
Yeah, I totally agree.
This is so cool. So where can people find you at? Because I know you have a podcast. I definitely follow you on Instagram. Walk me through how people can find you.
Thank you. Yeah, podcast is called Feel Amazing Naked, and it's on all podcast platforms. Our website too is feelamazingNaked.com, which you can find the podcast there. And then my favorite social platform is definitely Instagram. My handle is A Walk My Way, and just continuing the conversation there, sending me a DM there is a great way to connect. And Pinterest is also a great place. It's probably our second favorite platform. Also A Walk My Way there, just saving real boards, saving pins with real information. And I'd love to connect with anybody who has questions. And I just love continuing the conversation from the show.
I love this. So before I let you go, what is the one thing, if you could nutshell this, one thing that you want to leave listeners with?
I think the most important piece, which for me that I'm constantly looking at, is if you want to improve your life, if you want any result in your life, really evaluating how you collect evidence for yourself. Are you going out looking for reasons life is constantly not working or you're not having success? Or are you choosing to collect evidence around how life is working for you and how you are having success? Because that creates a catalyst for more of the same. And a lot of women I work with, I see, are stuck in a constant trap of collecting evidence against themselves. And so my goal for any woman, I think, following me on social or having the opportunity to work with, is to shift that thinking, to show just how powerful your mind can be on creating life that's happening for you, with you, and collecting evidence for it as you go.
Beautifully said. 1000% agree with that. Whatever you are choosing, you will find evidence to validate that. And so you just have to find new evidence, validate those new beliefs. This is incredible. Well, Amanda, I seriously, thank you so much. I didn't know where this was going to go. Like I told you in the beginning, we just have very organic conversations. And I am so glad we talked about the belief systems and going back to where like the root cause was, the meals, how to fuel yourself. This was a beautiful conversation. I loved every part of it.
Thank you. I agree.
Thank you.
I love connecting. Thank you so much for having me.